Dear friends, welcome to the next session for software engineering and designing concepts. So in today's session, we will be looking at a few drawbacks related to function-oriented design, and we will start off with various object-oriented concepts related to object-oriented design. So let us get started. So the basic shortcomings of function-oriented design, we are categorizing them into the drawbacks related to data flow diagrams and the drawbacks related to structure charts. So basically DFDs leave ample scope to be imprecise, which is the representation is not always very accurate. So in a DFD model, we infer about the function performed by a bubble from its label. However, a label may not capture all the functionality of the bubble. For example, if suppose a bubble is representing registering a particular customer or registering a student, it essentially do not represent all the functionalities that particular bubble is capable of or process is capable of performing. For example, the rejection scenarios, or admitting the student or registering the student as per their courses, or maybe some associated features like once a student is registered, is also registered to the library account, etc. So all those functionalities are basically not represented within the same label or within the same process. The next one is control information is not represented. The control information basically is the flow of control between the various processes. So in a DFD, if you look at a particular DFD, it will not give you which process is working first and which process is working second, or which process in between should be given priority, or the control should be with that particular process for that particular time. So that control information is basically not represented. It also do not specify various synchronization aspects. Suppose 2 or 3 processes are working in a synchronized manner, so those synchronization effects are also not represented in a DFD. And the most important factor is the way the decomposition is carried out to arrive at successful levels of DFD is subjective, which means basically it entirely depends upon the choice or the judgment of the analyst. So this is very important. We cannot go on decomposing. There are certain rules associated to the decomposition, that once we reach the atomic level of a process, then we are not supposed to decompose it further. But it depends upon the designer or the analyst to which level he actually perceives as a non-decomposable process. So it might be so that in level 2 itself some people might be representing it as a non-decomposable process, or sometimes it may go beyond level 5, level 6 in order to stop further decomposition. So it will depend entirely upon the analyst, which means it is entirely subjective. So that leads to various ambiguous status as to which particular process should run for what amount of time. Next is some of the problems related to structure chart. Essentially means we cannot say whether a module calls another module just once or many times. So in structure chart, if you see, the control is between the modules are represented using arrows, which means module 1 will be invoking module 2, but how many times is module 1 invoking module 2, that is not represented within the structured chart. And we cannot tell the order in which different modules are invoked. Now suppose there are 2 different modules. Let's say there is module 3 as well, which module 1 is basically invoking. So 2 and 3, they are the modules which module 1 will be invoking. Now we actually do not know whether the invocation to module 3 works first or the invocation to module 2 will be entertained first. So we do not have an idea related to this particular aspect as well. So these are all the drawbacks which are related to your function oriented design. So in order to mitigate, or in order to cover up all these defects of function oriented design, we have an approach which is known as object oriented design. So object oriented design basically begins with certain concepts which are related to object oriented paradigm, and these design techniques are very popular since they were actually when they were actually introduced into the entire system. So they became very popular in as compared to function oriented design. So inception in early 1980s, and it is already nearing its maturity. So the first time object oriented concept which was actually introduced was in early 1980s, and it is now nearing its maturity level, which means that it is already fully functional, and furthermore scalable factors are being introduced into it. The widespread acceptance in industry and academics, so object oriented concepts, or OOD designing concepts, so they are widely accepted both in the industry and academics, primarily because it is more relevant to the real world, as we can represent everything as a real life entity. Then we use unified modeling language in order to represent object oriented design, which is already an ISO standard and is defined in ISO IEC 19501. So we already have formulated a language which is used to represent this object oriented concepts, and unified modeling language we shall be covering up very soon. So a system is designed as a set of interacting objects. This is very important, because the backbone of object oriented design is basically this interacting objects. So often real world entities, for example employee, a book, etc., or controllers, managers. So these are conceptual objects. So either it might be a real world entity or a conceptual object. Everything is covered under the interacting objects paradigm, and these interacting objects will be basically implemented in the object oriented design. And basically, since we are talking of an object definitely has data or attributes related to it, and functions or methods which operate on that particular data. And most importantly, it also carries certain properties of your object oriented concepts, such as data abstraction. So basically it hides the internal information, and you can only see a black box view of the entire system, or very important view of the system, but you will not be given full access to the system. So basically we consider this entire concept to be a game of objects, where objects will have its associated attributes, and there are certain methods which will work on this particular data or attributes. And most importantly, there are various properties related to this object oriented design, and one of them is data abstraction, which will hide the internal information or the organization of the internal information from the external world. If we look at the model of an object, let us consider this particular object, and this object has data, and this data will be having the various methods which are M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, M6, M7, M8. So the typical look of the model of an object is something like this, where you will have its associated data and various methods which are working on this particular object. So talking about objects, so we have to encapsulate, or we have to use these objects in context to a class. So when we are talking about a class has its instances as objects, and basically it is a blueprint to create object. So when we are talking about blueprint, essentially we are talking about the context in which that object would be used, and it is sometimes also considered as an abstract data type because we will be hiding the internal organization of the data which is there. Some of the examples include employees, books, etc. for a class, and sometimes it is when we are not intended on producing the instances, we call them as abstract classes. So we will look at this very soon regarding the abstract classes concept. However, as of now we have to understand that we will work with objects, and objects are basically we will be creating instances of those objects to form a particular class, or a class is there which is basically a blueprint of that object, and we will use that class in order to determine various aspects related to the project. So if we are looking at the class diagram, so let us look at the class diagram. So we have not mentioned anything as of now here, so let us look here. There is a library member, so you can consider the library member to be a single class without any information related to it, or you can consider a library member class which has various methods associated to it. So these are basically your methods. So and you can also consider library member which has so we were talking about abstract classes. So when we are talking about abstract classes, essentially it means that we are hiding all the methods which are there. So this we have already seen, and we can give a detailed description of the library member class, which will be including not only the methods as well as the different types of objects, or different types of attributes, not objects, different types of attributes that your library member will be having. So it will include methods as well as the different attributes of this particular class, or different attributes of this particular object. In another representation we can give only the methods. However, in some of the abstract representation we will represent nothing apart from the name of this particular class diagram. So methods and messages are basically operations supported by an object, and it is meant for manipulating the data of other objects, and it is basically invoked by sending a message, or we can say it is by a method call. So examples include calculate salary, issue book, member details, etc. So all of them calculate salary, issue book, member details. So all of them are basically your method calls. No, all of them are basically invoked using this method call. These are, however, the methods, where calculate salary is the method or the function which will be calculating your salary. Issue book will be the function or method which will be related to issuing of a book, and member details will give the member details, or the details of the various members which have registered. Now all these functions or all these methods can be invoked using a particular method call associated with it. So now we have to talk about different types of relationships among classes. Now we have already understood that there is a particular class, and in this particular class we have objects. Now these objects need to interact with each other in order to realize the object oriented design concept. If they are interacting with each other, then definitely they need to have some sort of relationship among these objects. So this relationship can be categorized into inheritance, association, aggregation or composition, and dependency. So these are 4 different types of relationships which will be existing within the objects or within the interacting classes. So since we are we shall be talking about class in general and not object in particular, because class already has objects within it. So let us consider from now onwards that we will be talking about class. So whenever two different classes are interacting with each other, so if we are supposed to form a object oriented design concept, we have to make this class interact with each other, and if they are interacting with each other, we have to make sure that what type of relationship these classes are having, whether they are having an inheritance type of relationship or an association or aggregation or composition or an dependency type of relationship. So that is very, very important from the type of interaction. So the first type of interaction in today's session, we will be discussing about that. So it will be inheritance. It allows to define a new class, which is the derived class, by extending or modifying the existing class, which is the base class. We also call it this as parent class, which is your base class, and child class, which is the derived class, and it represents the generalization specialization relationship. So basically the base class is more of a generalization relationship, and is in generalization relationship, and the child class or derived class is basically in a specialization relationship. So suppose there are the main class M1 has two different child classes C1 and C2. So we call M1 to be in a generalized relationship with C1 and C2, and we call C1 to be in a specialized relationship with M1. So it allows redefinition of the existing methods, which we also known as method overriding. So there are already some methods which are existing in the parent class or the base class, and we will simply inherit the properties of those particular methods of the base class into our child class and modify them according to our requirements. So this is known as method overriding. So inheritance, if we look at inheritance, it can be represented using multiple inheritance or a single inheritance. So if you look at this particular diagram, so let us first take subclasses inherit attributes and methods from more than one base class. So first of all, let us consider this as the base class, and these are the derived classes. So when we are talking about derived classes, essentially these derived classes will be inheriting attributes and methods from more than one base class or at least one base class. So if we look at this, three different derived classes are inheriting values or inheriting methods from one particular base class. Again, in the next level we see three different derived classes are again doing the same thing, which is inheriting properties from one particular base class. Now when we look at multiple inheritance, we will see that in the first level we have the base class, which is the library member, and from here the three different child classes or derived classes are inheriting the properties. However, if we look at the next level, the research class, which is the derived class, is basically inheriting the various properties and attributes from two different or more than one base classes. So this is known as the multiple inheritance. So inheritance can be represented either in a single format or in a multiple inheritance form. So the next association we will be talking about is association relationship, and it enables objects to communicate with each other. So association is basically a simple association type of a relation where we or one object must know the address of the corresponding object in association. Generally it is a binary representation, but in general it can be n array. N array can be 1, 2, 3. So any type of association is possible. So a class can be associated with itself, which is a recursive association. Generally we have to show interaction of the classes between different or interaction of different classes with each other, but here in association relationship a class can have an interaction with itself. So suppose this is a class, so it can have a recursive relation or recursive association with itself. An arrowhead used along with the name indicates the direction of association. So we use an arrow in order to represent this. So here also in our previous example also we used an arrow, but the arrow was pointing to the base class and the part where the arrowhead is not present is basically the derived class. However, in your association relationship, the classes interact with each other with the help of this arrow, where the arrowhead will be considered as the name and indicates the direction of association as to which class is associated with which class. And multiplicity indicates hash of instances taking part in the association. So multiplicity will basically give you the number of instances of that particular class which is interacting with your class. So if we look at the association relationship from a diagrammatic point of view, so library member is a class, book is another class. So both of them are interacting using association. So here we have not used this arrow, but instead we have used an arrowhead on top, where a book is associated with the library member, and the library member will be borrowing a book. So that association will be represented using this name, which is book, which is borrowed by library member. That means the association is taking place in this direction, and the multiplicity will be representing the instances, which is 1, and star relates to many. It relates to many. So that means one library member is capable of borrowing many books. So this is more like a formal information related to how many instances of that particular class is used by how many instances of your communicating or interacting class. So if we are looking at this, the previous one was basically your binary association. So if we are looking at n-array association, so if you look at this, there are 3 different classes communicating with each other, which is person, skill and competency. So when we are talking about this relates to 3 different classes interacting with each other, and it will be having many to many, so multiplicity, so many persons will be having many skills. So basically, since there are 3 different classes communicating with each other in the form of association, we call it as a triary or tertiary association. So we have to make sure as to how many classes are communicating with how many classes, and then accordingly form a particular representation. So that is all for this session. Thank you.